River fishing for walleyes can take many forms. A technique that often outproduces others is fishing three-way rigs. Let's join walleye pros Johnny Candle and Mark Quartz on the Mississippi for some tips on three-way rigs.
This looks like a good spot. We're out fall river fishing today, and we've got a nice little deep hole here. This crisp in the air lets us know that the water temperature definitely dropping, and these walleyes are going to start making that upriver migration.
Yeah, you know, and with this murky water, the fish should be up there shallow, and this time of year they're trying to put a little feed on, so I think they should be up here and ready to go.
Yeah, we've got that fall migration starting to happen. We're in an area today that's off the main river channel. We're in a back channel where the current's going to be a little bit more reduced. Those fish are going to use this as a highway to start moving to their wintering grounds, so they're much closer to the dam for that spring spawning run. So let's get out there and we'll try and get a couple. Today we're going to concentrate with three-way rigs for these walleyes. We're fishing a boundary river, so we're allowed 2 rods apiece, and we're going to take advantage of that. I've got a live minnow on this one here, my dead rod in the holder. I've got a crankbait on. Mark in the back is actually fishing a neat little twist with a jig and a three-way, so he's got a crawler on part of it and a minnow on the other part. We're going to mix it up and see what the walleyes want. Once we figure out what they're going after, then we'll load up on those and try and catch as many as we can.
One of the three-way rigs we're using today, what we're doing is we're running about an 18-inch drop lead down to a lead head jig, and then off the other end we're just running just a number 8 plain hook. And what this allows you to do is actually present 2 baits at once instead of just using a plain weight on the bottom. You can use a minnow on one of the hooks, and you can also use a crawler or a leech on the other hook, so it gives you a couple different options.
I like to start with 10-pound test line on my reel. It holds up good to rocks and twigs or whatever you might be fishing around. Then from the three-way swivel, I'll go to my leader and I'll drop down to about 6 or 8-pound test, all depending on the size of fish I'm expecting to catch. If I'm fishing ultra clear water, I might even try some of the new fluorocarbon leader materials. For a dropper weight, 6-pound, maybe even 4 or 2. And why I want real light line there is so if that sinker gets hung up, when I break her loose, all I'm going to have to do is tie a new leader on. For a hook, stick with your standard live bait hook, number 2 for minnows, number 4 or 6 for worms or leeches. You can even put a little bit of plastic on there to give it some color, or maybe even tie a floating crankbait on that end. There's lots of variations for these three-ways, and they'll really help you put those walleyes in the boat. You can see the bridge there in front of us. That is actually the main Mississippi River there. What we're fishing in again is called the back channel, and that's exactly what it is. It's a back channel. Current coming off the main river and into some backwater areas. Now the fish are migrating right now for their fall migration to winter near the dam. What they'll do is rather than fight that main river channel all the way upstream from the last dam, they'll duck into these back cuts and use that as a highway to get where they're going. What we're doing today is sitting here in a washout hole waiting for those fish to move through. When they come in there and start to take a little rest, we put some bait in front of them and wham, we catch them.
Fish on.
You need the net there, big guy. Want me to get the net for you there, Mark?
Yeah, why don't you, John?
Okay. Get him up. Oh, that's a nice one. Nice sauger there. He hit on the jig. Not a sauger either. ID is slipping today. That's one of the great things about three-way rigs. They're so versatile there. We even had a jig on that one to go with the live bait. Got us a nice little fish. He'll go good for the frying pan. You want to keep him for dinner?
Yeah, why don't we, Johnny?
In rivers, walleyes hold near the bottom where the current flow is less than that of the water above. By trolling upstream with a three-way rig, you keep the bait in this strike zone. Use enough weight to keep the bait at about a 45-degree angle when trolling slowly for the ultimate in control and sensitivity. Where legal, try using a large jig for your weight. Sauger are especially vulnerable to a big leadhead jig bouncing along the bottom.
Well, it seems these fish are holding in the outside bend here in the river, on this back channel actually. And there is a little bit of current. And you see that we're just barely making headway. And that's kind of the key to this presentation is you want to be moving upstream, but very slowly. And from time to time, I'll even let off the trolling motor a little bit so we're just hovering and standing still, or maybe even drift a little bit backwards. Sometimes those walleyes will come up and look at a bait, and if you can drop it back to them just a little bit, that might be what triggers them to pick it up. One of the key things to this presentation is the angle of your line and the amount of weight that you have. You want your line at least a 45-degree angle or better entering the water. And if that angle's not quite there, then you're going to have to put a bigger weight on. What this is going to allow you to do is feel the bottom a lot better, and it'll help you feel those subtle bites when the walleyes just barely pick it up.
As you can see, we moved out of the back channel into the main lake area where the mouth of the river comes into the lake.
Yeah, Mark, what we're going to do is hope that these fish in the lake are staging just out of the main river channel. And you can tell we're going to have to switch to our kicker motor. There's a lot more current, and this wind could really cause us some fits.
There's a good one, Johnny. On the net there.
Yeah, you know, Mark, it's funny that most people don't even think of using a three-way swivel when they're fishing on a lake. And it's awesome there just as well as it is on the river. It lets you present that bait a little bit off the bottom without getting snagged up and keep the lure right in the strike zone like we did for this sauger right here. Hey Mark, I think I got something going here. Yep, sure enough, there's a fish.
Good fish, Johnny. That one was on a crankbait too, wasn't it?
Sure was. Makes one on each today.
Good fish.
That's my best one of the day, I think. You know, these three-ways, they're so versatile. That's one on a jig today, one on some live bait, now one on the crankbait. Why don't you get out there, try some of these three-ways, some of the tips we shared with you today. They're sure to put more fish in your live well. And hey, don't be intimidated. These rigs are so easy to use. All you got to do is leave them in the holder.